Still photographing birds, Eliza? My sister Caroline's voice dripped with mockery across our parents' immaculate dining table. She adjusted her diamond earrings, a gift from her husband Gregory, who worked at father's investment firm and never missed an opportunity to mention it. Someone has to document them before they disappear, I replied mildly, taking a sip of wine. Climate change is accelerating habitat loss at an unprecedented rate. Climate change, my father scoffed, carving into his roast with surgical precision. Another liberal fantasy designed to hamstring American business. I didn't argue. There was no point. In the Richardson family, dissent was tolerated only when it came from my brother James, the golden child and heir to Richardson Financial Group. Caroline, as the well-married daughter who'd produced the requisite grandchildren, ranked second. And then there was me, Eliza Richardson, the disappointing third child who'd abandoned a promising career in finance to take pictures of birds. As my father dismissively described my wildlife photography. What my family didn't know, what I'd carefully hidden for the past 7 years, was that my hobby was merely a cover for something much larger. Eliza's photographs were featured in National Geographic last month, my mother offered, always trying to smooth the rough edges of family conversations. Quite impressive, really. A weekend hobby is hardly a career, James remarked, adjusting his Patek Philippe watch, his latest acquisition, undoubtedly purchased to outshine Gregory's Rolex. The Richardson name stands for financial excellence, not bird watching. I smiled and speared a roasted carrot. We can't all be financial geniuses, James. That's certainly true in your case, he replied with a smirk. Our mother intervened before the conversation could deteriorate further. James, did you finalize that merger you were working on? The Continental deal? James' expression darkened slightly, still in negotiations. There's been an unexpected complication. A private equity firm has emerged with a competing offer. Which firm? Father asked, suddenly interested. That's the strange part, James said, loosening his tie slightly. No one seems to know. They operate through a series of shell companies and private holdings. The market is calling them the Phantom. I took another sip of wine to hide my smile. Whoever they are, they're making a nuisance of themselves, James continued. Continental was practically in our pocket until this mystery investor appeared with a better offer. You'll sort it out, Father assured him. Richardson men always close their deals. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. The Richardson patriarch had never quite accepted that 1/3 of his offspring was female and uninterested in perpetuating his financial dynasty. How's your little wildlife foundation doing, Eliza? Caroline asked with feigned interest. Still saving the whales or whatever it is you do. Actually, we've expanded, I replied truthfully. The Wildwood Conservation Trust now operates in 17 countries across 5 continents. We're focusing on habitat preservation and anti-poaching initiatives. How quaint, Caroline said, though I'm sure it doesn't pay much. If she only knew. The Wildwood Conservation Trust was very real. I founded it 6 years ago with a portion of my early investment returns. What my family didn't know was that it was merely the public face of a much larger operation. I manage, I said simply. Speaking of managing, my father interjected, your trust fund distribution is coming up next month, Eliza. Your 30th birthday. Ah, the famous Richardson Trust Fund. Each grandchild received a substantial sum upon turning 30, provided they met certain conditions, primarily involving career choices deemed acceptable by the family patriarch. I'm aware, I said. I've been thinking, he continued, setting down his knife and fork with precision, that perhaps we should revisit the terms. Oh, I kept my voice neutral, though I already knew what was coming. The fund was established to support the next generation of Richardsons in building meaningful careers and contributing to society, he said, as if reciting from a memorized script. Your hobby hardly qualifies. My conservation work is my career, Father, I replied calmly, and I'd argue it contributes significantly to society. He waved a dismissive hand. Taking pictures and soliciting donations isn't a career, Eliza. It's what bored socialites do between shopping trips. Robert, my mother cautioned. No, Martha, she needs to hear this. I've been patient. I allowed this phase to run its course, thinking you'd eventually tire of it and return to a proper profession. But you've persisted in this foolishness for 7 years now? 8 actually, I corrected him. 8 years wasted, he declared. You graduated top of your class from Wharton. You had your pick of positions at the finest firms in the country. Instead, you chose to throw it all away to chase birds around the globe with a camera. I set down my wine glass carefully. My life choices aren't up for debate, Father. They are when they affect the family name, he countered. The Richardsons have been financial leaders for 3 generations. We have a reputation to maintain, which James and Caroline uphold admirably, I pointed out. The family name is secure. That's not the point, and you know it, he said, his voice hardening. Everyone in our circle knows you've abandoned your responsibilities. Do you have any idea how it looks when people ask what my youngest is doing? And I have to explain that you've chosen to become a nature photographer. The way he said, nature photographer, made it sound like I'd decided to become a professional bank robber. I imagine it's deeply traumatic for you, I replied dryly. James snorted into his wine glass. This isn't a joke, Eliza, Father snapped. I'm considering withholding your trust fund until you demonstrate some sense of family responsibility. There it was, the threat I'd been expecting for years. Not that it mattered. The Richardson Trust Fund, while substantial to the average person, was pocket change compared to what I now controlled. That's your prerogative, I said with a shrug. My calm response clearly wasn't what he expected. Father's eyebrows shot up, and even Caroline looked surprised. You don't seem concerned, James observed. I'm not, I confirmed. I've never structured my life around that money. Don't be ridiculous, Father scoffed. We're talking about $7 million. I'm aware of the amount, I said. And you don't care if you lose access to it? Caroline asked incredulously. I considered my next words carefully. For 7 years, I'd maintained my cover meticulously, allowing my family to believe I was merely a moderately successful wildlife photographer who ran a small conservation nonprofit. The truth was far more complex and would soon become apparent regardless of what I said tonight. I've never needed the family money, I said finally. My work sustains me. Taking pictures of endangered birds pays $7 million? James asked skeptically. Obviously not, I replied. But money isn't everything. Father's face reddened. Money is the measure of success in this world, Eliza. Without it, you're nothing. An interesting perspective, I said, dabbing my lips with my napkin. Is that why Richardson Financial has been losing market share to Meridian Global for the past 3 quarters? The silence that followed was deafening. James's face went from smugly amused to coldly furious in an instant. Father's complexion darkened further. How would you know anything about that? James demanded. I shrugged. I read the financial news. Those reports are exaggerated, Father said stiffly. A temporary setback. Of course, I agreed, though we all knew it wasn't true. Richardson Financial had been steadily losing ground to newer, more innovative firms for years. Their refusal to adapt to changing markets was precisely why I'd chosen a different path. I think that's enough business talk for one evening, Mother interjected desperately. Caroline, tell us about Madison's dance recital. As Caroline launched into a detailed account of my niece's apparently groundbreaking performance as a daffodil, I caught James watching me with narrowed eyes. I'd revealed too much knowledge about Richardson Financial's struggles, information that a mere wildlife photographer shouldn't possess. I'd have to be more careful, at least until tomorrow. After dinner, I excused myself early, citing an early flight the next morning, which was true, though not for the reasons my family assumed. As I waited for the valet to bring my deliberately modest Toyota Hybrid, another carefully chosen prop in my charade, James approached, his hands in the pockets of his bespoke suit. You've changed, Eliza, he said, studying me with the calculating gaze he typically reserved for business adversaries. There's something you're not telling us. I smiled. Everyone has secrets, James. Not from me, he replied confidently. I make it my business to know everything about everyone. How exhausting for you. His eyes narrowed. This phantom investor causing trouble with the Continental acquisition. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I laughed, the sound genuine. James's suspicions were veering closer to the truth than he realized, but in the most unexpected way. Yes, James. I've secretly built a shadowy financial empire while photographing endangered birds in remote locations. You've uncovered my master plan. He didn't laugh. You always were too smart for your own good. And you always underestimated me, I replied as the valet pulled up with my car. Good night, James. Give Continental my regards. As I drove away, I caught his reflection in my rearview mirror, standing motionless in the circular driveway, watching me disappear into the night. I'd need to accelerate my timeline. James's suspicions, however misdirected, could complicate things. I drove straight home, not to the modest apartment near the Weldwood Conservation Trust offices where my family believed I lived, but to my actual residence, a penthouse overlooking the bay in the city's most exclusive building. As I rode the private elevator to the top floor, I shed the carefully constructed persona I maintained around my family, already mentally shifting to what awaited me. The elevator doors opened directly into my foyer, where Maya, my chief of staff, waited with a tablet in hand. "How was family dinner?" she asked, falling into step beside me as I moved through the minimalist space toward my home office. Predictably condescending, I replied, kicking off the sensible flats I wore around my family in favor of bare feet on the heated marble floors. "James is suspicious, though he can't quite figure out why. Should we be concerned?" "Not yet," I said, entering my office. "But we should move up the announcement. Is everything in place for tomorrow?" "Everything's ready," Maya confirmed, handing me the tablet. "Meridian's board has approved the merger terms. All regulatory clearances are in place. Press materials are prepared." I scanned the tablet's screen, reviewing the final details of what would be the business world's most shocking announcement in decades. Tomorrow, Meridian Global, the financial services giant that had been steadily eroding Richardson Financial's market share, would reveal its founder and CEO's identity. Eliza Richardson, the bird photographer. "The Continental acquisition?" I asked. "Richardson Financial has increased their offer as expected," Maya reported. "They still don't know they're bidding against Meridian and our alternative proposal to Continental's board. They're reviewing it now. Initial feedback is positive. They prefer our terms, especially the commitment to maintain their current workforce." I nodded, setting the tablet down on my desk. James mentioned the Continental deal at dinner. He's frustrated by the competition from the Phantom. Maya smiled. The nickname the financial press had given me, or rather my company, always amused her. For 7 years, I'd operated Meridian Global entirely from the shadows, using a complex structure of shell companies and private holdings to mask my identity. My own brother had sat across from me at countless family dinners, complaining about the mysterious competitor steadily outmaneuvering Richardson Financial, never suspecting it was his bird-watching sister. "How do you think they'll react to tomorrow?" Maya asked. I moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city, lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there was the Richardson estate, where my family was probably still discussing my disappointing life choices over brandy. "Father will be furious," I said. "James will feel betrayed. Caroline will suddenly discover a deep respect for my business acumen. Mother will wonder why I felt I couldn't tell them." "And how do you feel about it?" I considered the question. For 7 years, I'd maintained an elaborate deception, building Meridian Global from nothing while allowing my family to believe I'd abandoned the financial world entirely. I'd endured their condescension, their dismissal, their thinly veiled contempt for my supposed career choices. Tomorrow everything would change. "Vindicated," I said finally, "but also tired. Maintaining this double life has been exhausting." "Then why did you do it?" Maya asked. It wasn't the first time she'd posed this question, but perhaps sensing the imminence of tomorrow's revelations, she seemed to expect a different answer this time. "I needed to prove I could succeed without the Richardson name opening doors," I said, repeating my usual explanation. "If I'd stayed in traditional finance, everyone would have attributed any success to my family connections." Maya waited, knowing there was more. "But it was also about proving them wrong," I admitted. "Proving that their narrow definition of success, their obsession with legacy and appearance and doing things the way they've always been done, is outdated. I wanted to build something different, something meaningful." "Meridian is hardly a charity," Maya pointed out. "We're still a profit-driven financial services company, a company that invests in sustainable technologies, that refuses to fund environmentally destructive projects, that maintains ethical labor practices across our entire portfolio," I countered. "A company that proves you can do well financially while also doing good in the world. A company that just happens to be on the verge of becoming larger than Richardson Financial." Maya added with a smile. That part is just a bonus, I said, though we both knew it wasn't entirely true. The competitive streak that ran through all Richardsons hadn't bypassed me, despite my father's belief that I lacked proper ambition. The press briefing is scheduled for 9 a.m., Maya said, returning to business. Legal has reviewed your statement one final time. The merger announcement will go out simultaneously. How do you want to handle your family? I turned from the window. I'll call them after the announcement goes public. No advance warning. Cold, Maya observed. Necessary. I corrected her. If I tell them beforehand, James will try to interfere. Maya nodded, making a note on her tablet. Anything else? Have the helicopter ready at 8. I want to be at Meridian headquarters with time to spare. After Maya left, I poured myself a small glass of scotch, an 18-year-old Macallan, father's favorite. Tomorrow would change everything. The careful separation I'd maintained between my two lives would collapse entirely. The world would know that Eliza Richardson, dismissed by her family as a dilettante wildlife photographer, was in fact the founder and CEO of Meridian Global, one of the most innovative and rapidly growing financial services companies in the world. And then there was the Continental acquisition, the deal James had been pursuing for months, unaware that he was competing against his own sister. By this time tomorrow, Continental would be part of Meridian, not Richardson Financial. It wasn't personal, just business. The fact that it would be a spectacular blow to James's ego was merely a side benefit. I took a sip of scotch, savoring the complex flavors as I contemplated what tomorrow would bring. Part of me wondered if this reveal was petty, a grand "I told you so" to a family that had never taken me seriously. But it was more than that. It was about finally stepping fully into the life I'd built for myself, without pretense or deception. Tomorrow, Eliza Richardson would stop hiding in plain sight. If you like this story, so mention the second part in comments section so the next part will be soon uploaded.